There's going to be a lot of awesome e-bike releases in 2023 that I think are going to be game changers for the industry. For example, we have a brand new electric dirt bike hitting the market, the Raw Mantis, and this is going to be a direct competitor to the Suron. So for the first time ever, you have an alternative that might just be a little bit better. We also have the Lyric Graffiti. This is essentially the Super 73 we always wanted. It looks fantastic with a very clean, sleek, modern design, but it has a ton more power and range. And you can't forget about the Voodoo. This is a very high-powered, expensive e-bike that's a competitor to the Onyx. But again, it basically outdoes the Onyx in almost every category. But as if that wasn't enough, we have another brand new bike to add to this list. And it's actually from a brand you might be familiar with. This is Huck Cycles. This is actually an American company. They assemble the bikes right here in the United States. They've been around since the beginning of the pandemic, and this was their main go-to bike. In case it's not blatantly obvious, this is a direct competitor to the Onyx. Now, the main reason why this isn't that popular, and you might not be familiar with the brand, this bike, in my opinion, is just a little bit worse than the Onyx in almost every category. So to begin with, it's more expensive. The beginning price is $6,220. The bike is also a little bit bigger and heavier than the Onyx, which is never something you want in an e-bike. And the power is nothing special, 3 kilowatts nominal, 6 kilowatts peak. But for 2023, Huck Cycles did a major refresh of their main bike, and I gotta say, it looks absolutely amazing, and it has fantastic specs that really set it apart from most bikes on the market. So the design, you can see it's very radically different. It looks a lot more like a dirt bike, more athletic, and this is something I'm a huge fan of for a very specific practical reason. And it's based around the rear swing arm. So you can see this design, it's a monoshock, and the shock itself is very close to the rear pivot point. And this improves the leverage of the shock, giving you much better overall suspension. Compared to their old designs, they used to have a dual shock system that essentially connected to the axle of the wheel. So there's no mechanical leverage here. And in combination with that very nice looking inverted front fork, this bike should have amazing off-road suspension. But the new looks and the improved suspension isn't even the main reason why I find this bike so fascinating. It's because it has the biggest battery I've ever seen on any e-bike. It comes in two flavors, 60 volts, 50 amp hours, or 72 volts, 50 amp hours. And that alone would be a super impressive capacity, but you're gonna notice it says dual in front of this. You have two 72 volt, 50 amp hour batteries in this bike, giving you a total watt hour capacity of 7,200. So the bike has a much better design in terms of both the looks and the suspension. The battery is just so good, and it's also very powerful. So you might have noticed that it does use a hub motor, and this has its own sets of pros and cons. So a mid-drive motor, like you would find in the Suron, is going to give you better low-end torque and efficiency than a hub motor. However, hub motors do not require any moving parts. There's no drivetrain between the motor and the wheel because it's the same thing. So essentially with a hub motor, you never have to worry about looping the chain, it breaking, falling off the sprocket, or anything like that. And with a power of 3 kilowatts nominal, 8.5 peak, this hub motor should be able to do most things. They've also decided to go with the BAC 4000 for the controller, and that's a trend I've been seeing in the market. The BAC 4000 is one of the best aftermarket controllers, and I'm glad to see more and more companies using them straight out of the box. The only real negative of this bike to me is the steep price tag. It's $8,690. So that's the Huck Stinger 2023. It's a great bike, but it's surrounded by other great bikes. So let's do a quick comparison here. So as far as I can tell, this is the stiffest competition for the Stinger, and it begins with the OG Onyx. So this bike is also a hub motor. It has a nominal power of 7.2 kilowatts, peak of 13 kilowatts. The battery is 72 volts, 41 amp hours, total capacity of just shy of 3,000 watt hours, and it costs $5,600. Something I like here is the nominal power is pretty high. I thought the Onyx used to be around 3 kilowatts, so maybe they recently did an update. But something I don't like about the Onyx is that rear suspension is not very good. Next we have the Voodoo, aka the Onyx Killer. This is also a hub drive bike. but the rear suspension is much better. It has that monoshock design in a much more advantageous position. The nominal power is 3 kilowatts and the peak power is 18 kilowatts. We have another 72 volt battery, but a pretty big capacity at 50 amp hours, total watt hour capacity of 3,600, and the price tag is $7,000. And I think it's pretty easy to say that this Voodoo is the closest competition to the Huck Stinger. The overall design it's different, but it's also similar. They both have a monoshock in the back, although it looks like the Stinger is in a more mechanical advantageous location. It also appears that the front fork is just higher quality on the Huck. Their nominal power is the same. The peak power is more on the Voodoo. The Huck is about $1,600 more expensive, but the big difference is the battery. The Stinger is literally double the battery capacity of the Voodoo. And I gotta say, just my opinion, I was a huge fan of the Voodoo when I first heard about it about a month or two ago, but now the Huck Stinger, man, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's just a little bit better too. Now there is one big exception to that. The Stinger doesn't have pedals, and the Voodoo does. Although let's be honest, neither of these are e-bikes. They're both light electric motorcycles. And if you compared the Huck Stinger against an actual light electric motorcycle like the Land Moto, I think it still ends up on top. We see the price tag now is very similar between these two models. The Land Moto is significantly more powerful, but again, when it comes to the battery, the Stinger is just on a different level. So there we have it. That's another awesome bike coming out this year. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. If you're still watching and enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.